Hello, welcome to FHE on the Road with Christine Stevenson. This podcast is designed to connect the people and the places from the past with your lives today, with 5-minute stories and facts from church history. Save these stories for when you are traveling through these areas to bring history to life. Okay, welcome back to FHE on the Road with Christine. Today we're going to tell the story of Joseph Smith's leg operation, and I think this story is incredible. I know that it is not uncommon. It is not an uncommon story to tell in church. A lot of people have talked about it, and it's in manuals, and it's not an obscure story. But I do feel like some of the coolest parts of the story are not spoken about as often. So hopefully you'll learn something from this podcast. I think it's this operation and all the pieces that had to fit together for it to work is truly a gift from God. Like, it's truly miraculous. And I love that we can see that God's plan is perfect and the pieces for this were put together well before the need was there. So let's get into it. In the year 1813, a typhoid fever epidemic had spread through the city where Joseph Smith and his family were living in West Lebanon, New Hampshire. Joseph Smith was about 7 years old during this trying time of his life, and the typhoid fever had spread through their whole family, hitting Joseph Smith and his sister Sophronia the hardest. Sophronia almost died from it, and Joseph Smith could have died too. It was a really, really tragic time. So Joseph recovered from the sickness, but then developed swelling under his left arm. He was seen by a doctor. So this is the first doctor that they talk about, Dr. Parkhurst, and on more than one occasion, trying to get help, trying to get that swelling to go down. And in one account, they talked about how they opened up the arm of Joseph Smith and drained a quart of pus out of his arm. So that's disgusting. And can you believe how much swelling? And he's only 7 years old. So this is it's so sad. And then when the pus was drained, Joseph recorded that he felt an immediate pain in his left tibia or shin bone. So the bacteria from the abscess had spread through the bloodstream into the left tibia. And Joseph Smith was sick for several weeks with this new problem and in so much pain. So Joseph had developed osteomyelitis, and that is a serious bone infection, often treated with amputation and can cause death, even today. So Joseph was in terrible pain from the osteomyelitis, and the Smith family, they were desperate to find help for their little 7-year-old. They called the next doctor, Dr. Stone, and he made 2 incisions in the leg, hoping to release the swelling, but it did nothing to cure the osteomyelitis, so the real problem. And Dr. Stone told the Smiths that he could do no more to help Joseph, and he recommended amputation. And I feel like this part of the story is pretty common. When Lucy Mack Smith, so the mother of Joseph Smith, felt that there could be more done for her son, she did not want him to lose a leg, and they all started searching for a second opinion. And that's when they found Dr. Nathan Smith, which is so incredible. He was called in to give a second opinion. They think that So Hiram Smith was attending Dartmouth College at the time, and they think that could have been how they found him, because Dr. Smith was working closely with Dartmouth College. So Dr. Smith lived in the same town and was a surgeon, and he's the only man in the whole world at the time who could successfully remove the infection from Joseph Smith's leg without removing the whole leg. Without Nathan Smith, Joseph Smith would have lost his leg for sure, 100%, and he probably would have lost his life. Not only was that part, can you believe that the only doctor in the whole world who's able to do that lives in their town? But he also traveled often, Nathan Smith did. And he just happened to be home when this surgery was absolutely needed. So it's so amazing that he was there, and he's the only man in the world who could do it. So the Smith family agreed to let Nathan Smith operate on Joseph's leg. And holy cow, the operation was so terrible. It was agonizing, and just what Joseph Smith had to go through, and without any anesthetic. So they talk about how it's comparable to dealing with live nerves, imagine going to the dentist and live nerves and no anesthesia. So that's what he went through getting this leg surgery. When the surgery was over, they left the leg open, and 14 pieces of bone made their way out of the incision. Joseph was so weak and frail after the operation that he even recorded that his mother was able to carry him around with ease. And he's 7 years old. Isn't that so sad? He was so weak, and He was on crutches for 3 years, and all the pain ended up being worth it because he was able to keep his leg, and it's a medical marvel for the time. He did end up walking with a slight limp for the rest of his life. The miraculous surgery performed by Nathan Smith didn't end up catching on to the rest of the medical world at the time. It seemed that no one was still able to do the surgery, even with the help of Nathan Smith. There are records of some of the students of Nathan Smith attempting the surgery, but none of the doctors were able to complete the surgery successfully, and ultimately the surgery was discontinued. Amputation continued to be the treatment even until the Civil War 50 years later. And then it wasn't until the First World War in 1914, almost 100 years after the surgery of Joseph Smith, when they were able to have success doing that surgery. That same surgery that Nathan Smith did to Joseph Smith. Can you believe that? 100 years. And Nathan Smith was an excellent doctor who went on to establish medical schools at Yale and University of Vermont, also Dartmouth Medical College. And at this same time, there was very little medical education anywhere in the United States. There were only 3 schools that were started before Nathan Smith started the medical schools, and there were no state boards, no medical boards or licensing, and in New England, there wasn't even a single hospital until 1810. So there was so little place to find help. And I love this story. I can't believe that literally the only person that could have done the surgery was right there in the town where he needed to be. I love seeing God's hand in it. I love that it all was able to work out. Obviously, Joseph Smith needed both legs to be able to do the mission that God required of him. And God set that up, and all these lessons were learned, and prayers were answered, and miracles were witnessed. And I love that Heavenly Father lets us be a part of it. He lets us witness it and lets us recognize his hand in it. Anyways, so hopefully you learned something from this. I can't believe this amazing surgery. Anyways, thanks. Thank you for listening to FHE on the road today. We hope you enjoyed what you've heard. Please like, subscribe, and share with anyone who'd be interested in these stories. Thanks.